I thank the gentleman from California. I thank the Speaker. Listen to my colleagues discussing the rule of law. I find it shocking because the average American is looking across their country wondering what happened to the rule of law. When I watch my fellow Texans getting destroyed by dangerous cartels and individuals being allowed into the United States, terrorists, people moving fentanyl into the communities that killed 6 kids in the school district in which I live. That's happening every single day. When I watch a 75-year-old woman being put in prison by a politically motivated judge in the District of Columbia because she protested in front of an abortion clinic. I want to say that again. This Department of Justice is putting a 75-year-old woman in jail for 2 years who is dealing with physical infirmities because she was praying and protesting in front of an abortion clinic. That is astounding. That is what has happened to the rule of law. The American people watching while statues are being defaced in the name of being pro-Palestinian, people exercising their so-called free speech rights to be advancing the cause of terrorism against our friends in Israel, all happening right here, mere feet from the White House. The American people are wondering how this world got turned upside down. And here we sit and we're debating this issue. And the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland, came before the House Judiciary Committee just a little over a week ago. And in that hearing, a number of questions were asked. And I engaged with the Attorney General. And I asked the Attorney General, did he or did he not claim privilege with respect to the transcripts of the audio recording in question when we were talking about Special Counsel Hur looking into the allegations of the abuse of classified materials by the President of the United States before he was president. And I asked him, and he said, no, we did not claim executive privilege with respect to the transcripts. In a separate exchange involving the best evidence rule, the Attorney General was engaging with another colleague, a friend on the Judiciary Committee, about the best evidence rule, and in doing so, articulated and explained how the transcript was admissible under the best evidence rule, which is correct. But in doing so, he kind of gave up the game in which he described and said, they're the same. He said to the committee, he said, they're the same. Now, he just told me that they did not claim executive privilege with respect to the transcript. Then he said to all of us, they're the same. The audio recording and the transcript are the same. And then he proceeds to say that he must, in defending the rule of law, claim executive privilege on the actual audio, and then deny the members of Congress the ability in the middle of an impeachment inquiry, duly constituted, voted on by this body on the House floor, an impeachment inquiry, to then deny us the ability to listen to the audio. The fact of the matter is, there's only one reason why the Attorney General would do that. He doesn't want us to hear it. That's why. And there's really only 2 reasons why that would be the case. Either the transcript doesn't match the audio, or the audio is so bad that he doesn't want us to hear it because Special Counsel Hur put the entirety of his decision not to prosecute, not to pursue, not to go after the President of the United States for abuse of classified materials. He did it entirely on the basis of what we perceive as the demeanor of the president, which only the audio can allow Congress the ability to determine the validity of that determination by the special counsel. I yield back.